Good. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to part 2 of my presentation, which was NPD for FMCG. So I hope you enjoyed last time's presentation. I'm just going to share my screen here for everybody. Back up to the beginning. There we go. There we go. And I cannot see anybody. There we go. Okay, great. Good. So if you remember last time we talked about taking a concept to a category review presentation. Oh. Yeah. Yes. So before we get started, I just want to touch base on, again, working from home, making sure your workstation is set up safely, you're comfortable, and you take a break if needed. So just make sure that it is a safe environment for you, especially on a Saturday after you've been working hard all week. Good. So I just wanted to recap. Who remembers what NPD is?
Was it new product development or something?
Yes, that's right. That's right. And where did we find those products mainly?
Supermarkets.
That's right. Exactly right. Perfect. So if we look at what NPD is, we like to talk about it in terms of it's new product development, the complete process from a great idea all the way to a product being on your supermarket shelf.
Can I check, Lorelei? I just saw the limited edition stuff that in one of the chocolate brands.
Yeah.
Is that considered a successful thing, or is that like still a test run?
It is done from a strategy point of view. So if you remember how I spoke about things like increasing the foot traffic. So it's done for something like increasing foot traffic, but then if it's successful, it could often be a test that then goes into a everyday line like the Kit Kat Gold. That was just a one-off, and then it was really, really successful and it worked very well. So the purpose of today is to understand not that what we call that front end side of it, but really to understand the back end side. So how the process works from that idea and that presentation to how it actually comes through in a food manufacturing environment and the things that you need to think about within that. So I'm just going to go over and recap on that category review process that we talked about last time. That was the last part that we got to. So if you remember, these meetings are scheduled once a year. It's really based a lot on commercial decisions, and it's usually made by one buyer. And remember, they have a lot of power, these buyers and these supermarkets. So these meetings are a really, really big deal. They're very, very stressful. And then we get to the point and, it's success. They've sent you a letter or a phone call and you've won the business. So everybody's excited, everybody high five, running around. This is great. But this is really where the action really happens now. And the timelines are often really, really tight. So the supermarkets work to their calendars and they don't really care how long it takes to make something or to get the ingredients to do that. And they just see that as that's your problem to worry about. And we will touch on that throughout the presentation because it is such a big gear within the industry. And then there's the need to manage the internal and external challenges. Okay, so if we look at who is involved externally, there's such a wide variety of players that will be involved in what you're doing. So I've taken this little viewpoint from the factory's point of view. And so you could be thinking about something like a machinery supplier. So maybe you have a machine that needs some changes to it or alterations to make the type product that you want. And then if the machinery is involved, there's the engineers that need to be involved to make sure they put it all in the machines and have it working correctly. There's the ingredient suppliers. So the ingredients could come from all over the world. They could just come from Australia. There's what we call the flavor houses. So something's got a flavor, it's come from a specialist business that makes flavors. There's the packaging material, and packaging is really, really complicated, and that's a whole nother industry by itself. There's what we call co-manufacturers. So you could have an ingredient in your product. Say you have a sugar-free chocolate drop. Well, you probably don't make the chocolate drops, but they come from a co-manufacturer. You have your customers involved. So if you're doing private label for Coles and Woolworths or Aldi, they will come to the factory and inspect things and be there when the factory runs those products, making sure that everything is up to their standards. And then there's external auditors, which are there's different levels of food safety. And you get audited for those things, or else it could be something like a kosher audit, or it could be a certified palm oil audit. You know, there's a huge number of different food safety levels that are required. And then if we look at who is involved internally, and this is where it's really something when it's about new product development, every department is involved and has an important part to play. But not everybody is passionate about it because they see it as outside of their daily work. So it's very similar to what Carla was talking about the other day with OH&S, is everybody knows they need to be safe. Everybody knows they need new products in the business, but it's a pain for them and they don't really want to have to deal with it. So sales are obviously involved. They're the voice of the customer. They talk to the customer. Finance is involved. Quality assurance, which will include OH&S, and quality is a really big part of this, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. There's manufacturing, the product actually being made in the factory. The procurement, so that's the buying of the ingredients and the packaging. The logistics, that's the getting the product through the warehouse to the supermarket warehouse and into the stores in the time that they want it in. And then customer service, who takes the orders. And all of this is dependent on that point that I talked about previously about the timelines. So I think now I've talked about probably 20 different areas of involvement from people that are all driving to meet this one particular timeline to get the product onto the shelf in time. So what does the NPD manager need to think about? Oh, yes, Carla.
Can I ask, with regards to when you talk about products, how many products would you demonstrate to the Coles?
Yep, so if we're talking about one-off product launch, is that what you mean? Sorry, I'll say, if you go in with an idea, you might present 5 different variants. So it could be strawberry, blueberry, apple, lemon. They probably won't take 5, but that's what you would be talking about in terms of one product launch. But you could have many product launches going on and within the business at the same time. Does that make sense? Yeah. So has anybody even heard of an NPD manager before? No. So the NPD manager is the project manager, and they're really coordinating all those different departments.
So So Lorelei, can I ask a question? It's Helen.
Yes.
So is the NPD manager, is that somebody that the supermarket has, or is that somebody that like agency would
Oh,
have?
we're now at the food manufacturing business.
So it's at the manufacturing. Thank you.
Yep, we're talking about the food manufacturing business. Yep, that's right. However, the supermarkets do have NPD managers, but don't get confused by that. We are talking about a factory focus at the moment. So it's the person within the food manufacturing business that coordinates all those steps that we were talking about, and they are responsible for that timeline to make sure that timeline comes through. So I wanted to ask a question about why did we think the NPD manager needs to work really well collaboratively with manufacturing? So thinking about, I just want to throw out their ideas. I know the concept's really probably quite different for you, but I just wanted to throw out some different ideas, and I thought we could do it in the chat. So hopefully that's gonna work okay today. Whoops, hang on. So if you put things in the chat now, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to see that. If not, we can just talk about it. I don't see it coming up. Has anybody written anything in the chat? No.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Lorelei. Can you hear me? I
Yeah,
can't get the chat to work. So
Yeah,
I'm just on my phone. So I would just say we need to work collaboratively so that an idea is able to be manufactured, because there's no point coming up with a fantastic idea if it can't be made.
That's absolutely correct, Helen. And that happens all the time. Really, really happens all the time. So someone has a great idea for a product, but it's actually unable to be made. What's another area that would relate into what Carla does for her work? It's also about safety. So safety in a factory environment is super, super important. And you know, the accidents that could happen in a factory can be really, really quite horrific, and you really want to avoid that. So what we say is that manufacturing, they're the experts in the factory. So we need to be talking to them about how things actually work in the factory. And the NPD manager needs their ideas and input for successful NPD launches. There's often, as I was talking about before, conflict between the two groups, because a factory is measured by how fast it is, how fast it's manufacturing products with the smallest amount of people on a manufacturing line. If you're implementing new NPD, it often takes, it's very slow and it takes people. So you've got this conflict going on between the two parties that you're often trying to manage and get them to work together. So the steps that are involved are quite, quite complicated, and they all sort of overlap and overlay each other. So it's not something that's just a straight timeline that goes through. But what I wanted to do was talk about the different steps and what it is behind that. And then I'm going to talk about, and I think this is the interesting part, is about what happens when things don't go right. So we can see that. So last week, again recapping, we talked about the idea, the research that went into it. I think Ilias asked if we did research projects. We do desktop research. We work with our customers and consumers to get the ideas. We put a proposal together. Hopefully the product is one. I've got an example here, which is a product that's just being launched, but just under a different brand name, but it looks exactly like that. Which was a gluten-free pasta, which is a very good quality if you see it in any stores. only launched earlier this month, so that's good. And then we look at what the steps are that are involved. So as soon as we hear that the business is won, the first thing we do is a timeline. The timeline is the most important thing to drive things along because it's so easy for it to blow out and cause problems. We look at the capabilities in the factory and make sure that everything's okay to actually produce this product, exactly like what Helen was pointing on. Can you actually make that? We review the formulation or the recipe of the product and put that together, and you need that to do all of the labeling. So you think about your health stars, your ingredients lists, how many calories are in something. That's all comes from that formulation. And then a really, really big one which comes into it is allergens. And managing those allergens. It's a huge area. There's actually a whole department that really is just focused on that. And then there's the ingredient procurement. And so if we're thinking about the ingredient procurement, the ingredients can come from all over the world, and they all have different timings on how you're going to get them into your factory in time. And I wanted to just think about something. So if we think about a muesli, can someone name an ingredient in a muesli?
Oats.
Oats, yep. So oats will come most likely from Australia because we have really good oat supply. What else?
Fruit.
Fruit,
So
yeah.
fruit, dried fruit.
Let's think about cranberries. They come from Canada.
Yeah, you got sultanas.
Sultanas could be Australia, they could be China. Apricots, most likely going to come from Turkey.
Sometimes they have seeds on them.
Sorry?
Sometimes they have seeds like almonds or
Yep,
something.
so pepitas come from China. So you can see it can
coconut flesh.
Yep. So coconut, there's a number of different countries in Asia where that will usually come from, often from the Philippines or Vietnam. So you can see it. So the person who's the procurement manager has to organize all of those different ingredients, and they all have to arrive at the same time. They can't arrive too early because you won't have room in the factory in the warehouse, and they can't arrive too late because then you're going to miss your deadline. And if you miss that deadline with the supermarket, it's over. You don't get another chance. So it's quite high pressure in that way. So also we think about the branding, and that's often done up front. The idea, it's quite creative. They're artistic people. They have really cool offices with dogs in them and stuff, when we go there. But then the packaging design, well, that's creative and technical, because the packaging itself has to have the properties that are required. So if I'm talking about a muesli again, it has to have what we call good barrier properties so it doesn't go stale. So it's not just as simple as putting it in a bag and putting it in the supermarket. And there's a lot of testing and stuff that goes on with that. And the design has to be put on what we call a die line, which is like a pattern for the graphics, and also be made to make sure that the product fits in the bag and doesn't explode out of the top of it or something, because that can happen, trust me. And then again, you have the packaging procurement. So that could come from overseas, or there's a lot of really good packaging manufacturers in Australia. So then if we go on to some of the less exciting parts of the manufacturing process, but they're still important, is we look at if there's any additional capital expenditure that needs to be made. The forecasting is something that's quite interesting and challenging. So if you think back to, again, earlier on when we talked about units per store per week, did anybody remember me talking about that? That's how the supermarkets measure how many sales they were making. So really what happens is an estimate or a guess is made on the units per store per week, calculating out how many stores it's going to be in. And again, you don't want it to be too high or too low. It causes problems on both sides. You want to make sure that your costs don't blow out. Your shipping methods, so I'll give you an example here. We manufactured products that had chocolate in it. 10 months of the year, it's fine. 2 months of the year, you manufacture it. What happens? Chocolate melts. So you've got to work out how to manage that throughout that process as well. And then there's the actual manufacturing process in the factory, which they would review what happens there.
That would be why I've seen when I've been in some like Middle East areas, yeah, they sell like Cadbury's chocolate is different because it's got different ingredients in it, so it doesn't melt.
Yes, that's exactly right. And it probably has different packaging, and it's probably stored differently through the supply chain, because chocolate's really, I'll say fussy. If it gets too cold, I don't know if you've ever opened up chocolate and it's got the white on it, and that's from when it's got cold, not for any other reason. So the when come out. So it's, you know, it's understanding all of those steps. So it can't get too hot, it can't get too cold, and you've got to get it to the store and managing that.
Thanks, Lorelei.
Good. Okay, so what I've got here, I hope you find it interesting. I found it really interesting. And this is, do you know Barilla pasta? Yep. Okay, so this is Barilla Pasta Factory. And it's looking at the inside of the factory. And I wanted to show you guys this because this is a highly robotic factory. It's really swishing great, but it's really interesting because it looks through all of the steps coming through. So it goes for about 3 minutes. So I hope you find it interesting. Here.
This is the biggest pasta factory in the world. Barilla produces 1,400 tons of pasta each day at its flagship plant in Parma, Italy. Each line produces about 10,000 pounds of pasta per hour, which goes to fill roughly 230 blue Barilla boxes. The recipe for dry pasta is simple. It only takes durum wheat, semolina flour, and water to make dough. Barilla then takes the dough and turns it into 103 different shapes, including long strands of spaghetti and bow ties of farfalle. Machines punch out each shape before the pasta goes through the drying process. This process allows the pasta to preserve itself so that nothing else is needed to keep it fresh. And this is what gives the boxed yellow carbs a longer shelf life than most other products.
We press the pasta throughout a die, which is a metal plate with holes shaped in the way to obtain the format of pasta that we want to pack. We dry the pasta for up to 12 hours in this plant, depending on the recipe, depending on the formats, in order to obtain a shelf-stable, dry, and ready-to-be-eaten pasta.
The Barilla factory operates 24 hours, 7 days a week.
We produce more than 320,000 tons of pasta per year, which means at the end of the year, more than 4.2 billion of pasta dishes. So we are very proud to say that in 18 months, we can feed the entire population of the world.
Barilla started as a small bake shop in the center of Parma more than 140 years ago. Today, the company is privately owned by fourth-generation Barilla brothers, Guido, Luca, and Paolo. While ownership has stayed the same for decades, much has changed since 1877, especially in the way pasta is sold today.
The turning point came when Pietro Barilla traveled to the US after the Second World War, and he saw the packaging of food. And so he came back. He was very much in touch with artists and designers, and together with the artists, they designed the blue box, which is now famous all over the world.
Barilla consumers around the world buy more spaghetti than any other blue box variety, and that's what makes it the most produced shape in the factory.
I think that spaghetti, in terms of long cut pasta, is very well known all around the world, because in China you have noodles, in Italy spaghetti of course, but it's not that far from the culture and the habits of many population in the world.
Barilla is available in more than 100 countries, including Brazil, Singapore, and Japan. Italy was traditionally the biggest pasta market for Barilla, until the US recently took over the top spot. Today, the company controls 32.8% of the entire dry pasta market in the United States. The industry is growing beyond the US too, as consumer eating habits favor meatless meals and plant-based diets.
We've seen definitely a shift towards more plant-based diets, because it's now universally recognized that they are the best one for the health of people and of the planet. And so we are seeing globally an increase in pasta sales.
The trend doesn't look to be dying anytime soon, which could mean more demand for blue boxes around the world.
Good. I hope you enjoyed that. So just reflecting on that, I hope that that helps put all of the concepts that I was talking about and bring them in together. So there was a few things that they touched on in the video. And so one of them was about the packaging. Did anybody hear what they said about the packaging?
Yeah, it was a blue box that's very recognizable.
That's exactly right, Sib. So they recognized that that was a different way of marketing their product, and they had creative people involved to make sure that it stood out. What was their #1 product that they sold in their range?
The ribbony pasta. In the little ribbony bowl.
The spaghetti.
Spaghetti.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, spaghetti.
It's my favorite too, and I'm hungry now.
Yeah. So interestingly, spaghetti's #1 across the world. It's the number one pasta shape. That's what everybody loves. And I think that goes again to what they talked about in the video, was that's adaptable across all different cultures and countries. So people are aware and familiar with it. You saw that there was the robots with all of the boxes and everything. So that's moving people out of the factory to reduce costs. And it's also safer, right? They're not hurting their backs, that sort of thing. And it's about this large volume and speed going through. And then one of the last things they talked about was one of the trends that I spoke about last time. Did anybody pick up on that?
Yeah, the plant-based.
Exactly. Food. Yeah. So what they're seeing, even though they're not focused on vegetarian or vegan food, they're seeing a spike in their products because of this trend. And they're just enjoying the benefits of it. So I guess what I really want to highlight is the integration between what happens up front with sort of the marketing and the trends and stuff, and then what happens in the factory and that really, really technical side of things. Okay, so, oh, there we go. It seems easy. What could go wrong? Unfortunately, lots of things can go wrong. So I wanted to, and again, I'm sorry that the chat wasn't working, but I think for the purposes of today, just having a discussion should work okay for us. Have you ever seen anything in the supermarket or bought something and opened it up and it wasn't right?
I bought something in a supermarket once. I'm not sure if this is what you're asking, Lorelei.
Yeah.
It was like a over-the-top packaged Ferrero Rocher at Christmas in like a big ball. And when you actually opened it up, there's hardly any Ferrero Rochers inside it. It was just like an ordinary little packet of Ferrero Rochers in the middle of this big, ornate, big plastic bowl. It was quite a big thing. Very disappointed what was inside.
Yeah.
Is that the sort of thing you meant?
that sort of thing, and also when things can go wrong. So before we step into it, I'll give you something that happened to my daughter once. Was she bought a salad, you know, those pre-made salads in the bowls from Coles.
Oh yeah, yep.
And she was eating it, and there was a dead frog in it with a leg missing. So yeah.
What?
That's the sort of thing that, you know,
A dead frog.
about. So I wanted to sort of highlight some of the challenges that can happen. Probably that's a really bad example, but you know, things happen. Things definitely happen. So like I said, it seems easy. What could go wrong? The main one that I've spoken about is about the timelines when things don't come in time. Yes, Carla.
So I follow the, by the way, it's about 30 minutes timekeeper here. Following Aldi page, and it was supposed to be a pea carrot and corn mixture of frozen vegetables, and they were just getting peas and corn.
Yeah.
And it was just pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like, how could you miss the carrots, like orange?
How did that?
Yeah. And there was quite a few bags.
Those are the things that
everywhere, so it's quite funny. But
yeah.
Anyways, that's my 2 cents.
That's exactly right. So we talked about the timings, and this is one I think I touched on. The product doesn't fit in the packaging, or it isn't suitable. So I know I've bought in bags of stuff and it hasn't sealed properly. Or what can happen in a factory situation is the particle sizes are bigger than when you did the trials, and it doesn't actually fit in the box anymore. That's a big problem.
Or if you're from Coonamble at the moment, you're likely to get rats and mice in everything because there's a rat plague there.
Great.
I don't know if you guys have seen the news, but it looks like something out of a horror movie.
Oh, yuck. That's terrible. And then I like the image here with these are meant to be happy face cookies. And they look like horror cookies, you know? And so that's, you know, an issue in manufacturing and with quality. Like someone's got a great idea, they've sold the product in, the price is right, and then that happens. It's a disaster. The ingredients or the packaging is more costly than expected. So that's a real business problem, especially when you're talking about agricultural ingredients. So something like almonds, for example, they're very expensive anyway. The crop is once per year and the price is set by the US. So you don't actually have any control over that, but you might be selling your product 6 months before that and then something changes. So that's a big business problem. Shipping or storage issues. This picture is not unfamiliar to me. I've seen these sort of pictures quite a few times. And again, from an OH&S point of view, that could be a really, really big issue, not just within the food factory, but within the warehouse and the shipping and everything through to the supermarket. And this is one that this is a really short, just a snip, but I'll just show you.
The Singapore Food Agency has recalled a snack that contains undeclared almonds. Those who are allergic to nut products, the tree nuts, such as almonds, should not consume Lotte's Choco Pie Banana.
The snack from South Korea has also been recalled by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. The affected batches have a best before date of 11th April 2020. Consumers can contact the importer Singlong Foodstuff Trading to exchange the product or get a refund. So
that one is really, really, really important. If someone accidentally eats...
The Singapore Food Agency has recalled
eats a peanut or a nut or an other anaphylactic causing ingredient, they could potentially die. So the management of allergens within a food factory, or a good food factory, I should say, are very, very important. And then we look at the labeling. So I've got an example here of a gluten-free chocolate chip cookie. This product contains gluten. You know, that's just really...
The Singapore Food Agency has recalled a snack that contains undeclared almonds.
So, you know, this is an area that's really, really critical, and it gets a lot of play in our media. We actually have very good laws in Australia. They're very adhered by major food manufacturers, not so much by the small ones, but you know, they're coming along. And I guess you know, what I spoke to you about at the beginning was that there's often this clash with the, you know, an NPD manager and the factory, but you can see these reasons, especially by looking at what could go wrong, why this relationship is so critical and important. And so we often, this is a slide that I've had presented internally in the business previously. It's about, you know, listening carefully, thinking about the implications, responding with detail and discussing and understanding the importance to the business and to the community in that sense. So people are aware and really thinking about what can go on. And then if we can do that, we can get successful and profitable product launches delivered on time. And that's it for me. Did anybody have any further questions?
I have a question. I wanted to ask about what area of what profession is this, like whole new world that I have never really thought about before?
It's called FMCG overall. That's the industry, yeah. And that's really products for mainly for supermarkets, but also for convenience stores. It could be something like Chemist Warehouse, Costco. You know, those sort of products. So it might not be food, it might be other products, but what we call fast-moving consumer goods. But what I've talked you through is probably a whole bunch of different professions.
Yeah, that's what I was sort of
within that industry. So we've looked at the sales and the marketing. We've looked at the product developer, who's probably a food technologist, so a scientist.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have like food chemists? You obviously have the engineers for manufacturing, for robotics.
That's right, and then there would be
and the chemistry of the flavors. Sorry, I'm just going off on a tangent here.
Yeah.
So it's why.
I'll just add, food technology is quite interesting because I've had a few friends to complete it, which I never knew existed. They've gone to work for places like Cadbury and all these lolly companies and make amazing, and just get all day to experiment with different chocolates and things.
Yeah, especially those big companies who have really big budgets for innovation. So a company like Chobani, Cadbury, and like, you know, I've been out to Cadbury and they had, you know, this is a long time ago before anybody had those, what are those special printers called? Sorry. 3D printers to make the rabbits for the next Easter. It's amazing. Yeah, so it is a very, you know, interesting and creative area. So this is a product that I worked on that's just launched as well, based on, you know, the plant-based trend, you know, gluten-free, healthy, you know, all those different things. So you can see those trends coming through. So yeah, good. So I hope you've had I know it's been a lot of information, but I hope it's been an interesting overview of the industry.
Great.
No, it's been really useful. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know how much power in a way, I think that the supermarkets have on whether they're going to like a product or not.
Yeah, they have.
And the amount of work you guys, that industry, that acronym
that goes into it even before.
That goes into it before, and the investment and manpower that you do.
Yeah, that's right.
More appreciation from my little corn puffs now.
Yes, and those corn puffs are meant to be the best corn puffs. So
they are amazing.
You don't like the Cobb's ones?
Huh?
Do you like the Cobb's corn puffs?
Yes. Oh my God. Oh, that brand is also amazing.
Yeah, you guys are selling the product quite well. I've never heard of them before.
Really, you should. It's I think it's more healthily conscious. I'm trying to, you know, I've always tried to have like not a diet, but a healthy lifestyle. So I'm looking always for products that they can be slightly naughty if you want to with your meals, add a bit of crunch to it. Sometimes you can put them in salads, or like I say, with a bit of salsa and a bit of meat, like a little chili con carne kind of thing, and your salad is just to add different textures. So yeah, anyways, that's my
Very nice.
You don't want to know about that, but yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. And if I could just ask, I've got a few of the feedback forms, but if you could send back the feedback forms, that would be great. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorelei.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was great. Thank you. I'll ask Jane Smith to leave.
What did you say?
Jane Smith.
Okay.
Thanks, Lorelei.
I think you had your microphone on both of them. So we're getting a little bit of an echo color.
Oh, yeah.
We could hear you twice. Wasn't that secret anymore?
Yeah. Oh, no, I've stopped. Like, oh, I wonder why. Oh, no, I'm still recording.
I think, yeah.